The first item I put on the agenda. I'm willing to hear. I know what we feel has to be changed, but anybody can come up, step up to the mic. Let me advise you, this meeting has been recorded, not only on my tape recorder, but Neil has very kindly, he's filming this meeting. Anybody who doesn't want to be filmed will take care of that. And let me tell you this, we will be posting the film of each meeting so everybody who was there could see it, and those that weren't there could see it. We'll be putting it on our blog, which Gary Ullman in the back handles, and we will be putting it on our email program. Please make note that UCO is having another advisory committee meeting on the 20th. It's what he calls a budget meeting. On the 20th, I believe it's in this room, and it was on our blog. I think it's 9:30 in the morning, which he doesn't anticipate a large crowd because this room only holds 200 people. So we're never getting the town hall meeting. I think it would behoove us to go there, all of us, and hear for the only time that you're going to get what he is putting together. Okay? So, moving along, I'd like to hear from anybody what they feel, what item they feel should be addressed that's not being addressed or not being addressed properly on the last, and I say that, the last budget you saw, because I think that was the 12th or 13th budget. It didn't go in accordance with what he put in the newspaper, so don't be surprised. Does anybody like to come to the mic?
Wait, say what?
Here's the question. We don't want to hear a story. We want to hear an item that you think was inappropriately or not addressed properly on the budget that was presented at the last delegate assembly meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. The mic is right here.
Okay.
This is Dan Gladstone, for those of you who don't know him.
I said it at the delegates assembly. I asked the treasurer, O'Brien, why he took this year, he took some of the designated contracted accounts that we have, like security, transportation, and move about a third of it into the general. If you have already a contracted account, you should leave it there. That's the right way of bookkeeping or accounting, if you will. So the answer was, and it's recorded, I can't give you an answer why they did this. And this is so inappropriate because if you have a designated account, let's say transportation, all the monies that actually go to transportation should be in transportation, not moved to the general. So I asked him the question, I'm asking if anybody else knows it. I didn't get any answer, and he said he could not give me an answer on this.
Thank you. I'd like to answer a question to a lot of people who were in charge of their association as to what they should actually do for their January payment. Now, many of you at Seacrest got an abbreviated message that they're only going to pay what was on the 2014 budget. I advised, and this is one of the questions Honey asked, my CAM, or condo manager, CAM is a licensed condo manager, that on the instructions which they all received from Howard O'Brien, there's several accounts. And on some of those accounts, while the budget was not passed, while the Wi-Fi was voted out of the budget, those items that he asked us to pay are less than in 2015. So I advised my camp, pay the lesser amount. Pay the lesser amount. Now, for those of you who don't know it, when you have an equally annualized payment, but UCO gets different amounts each month. For instance, the first time the UCO dues are paid for the first 3 months are in April. So there is no remittance of anything in January's payment. Second of all, for those of you concerned about money being short at UCO, be advised, according to Howard, he has almost $800,000 extra cash. So if he really has $800,000 extra cash, he will not be affected. Ultimately, when this budget goes through, and we hope to have the numbers changed, there will be a correct amount to pay. Howard kept on stressing, and I'm just bringing this up, he didn't have the authority to change anything. It went through the advisory committee, the president's committee, and the executive board. Well, when he changes this budget, and we're first going to see it on the 20th, those 3 committees have to approve it. Now, hopefully, people on any one of these committees have heard the message. Because as far as I know, everybody in all 3 committees were in agreement with Howard's budget. And obviously, they're not in touch with us because we voted down tremendously the Wi-Fi. And on the total budget, where David tried to put through the first portion, which is the biggest portion, the reserve, we won, we turned it down by a slight little bit more than 20 votes out of about 150. So that was a pretty good message to the officers, the advisory committee, and the executive board. Why did they vote for that when the people didn't want it? And it hasn't been a quiet issue. We've been talking about that Wi-Fi for 3 years. And in lieu of that, there was a Wi-Fi committee, and Ms. Israel decided to change the name to the Broadband Committee. And a sheep in anybody else's clothes is still a sheep. So he's not given up on that. I just reviewed the minutes. I believe you sent me the minutes of the executive board, or the last minutes, advisory committee. And in it, and we love this, Mr. Israel, who became the chief civil engineer, said he did a walk over the walkway, and he spotted more places that have to be addressed and corrected. Gee, that's a surprise, because Dom wrote the whole thing up during the period. Now, I have to tell him, and he knows, he may be a little biased because he's personally named in the lawsuit for the payment. And you were all there, if you saw when he said, I got the best report ever from Simmons and White. This is an excellent job. And for those of you who have been in our previous meetings, this $15 million increase has come out of the sky. And I'd be remiss in not telling you, our lawyers love it. They really do. Because now he's saying, what we did is no good, and he put that on record, and we have to redo it. And to redo it right this time, we have to spend 3 times the amount that we spent the first time when you told us it's right. So us, the delegates, the unit holders, are being asked to pay for the same road 4 times. That ain't bad. And as you and Cry that we're suing ourselves, well, I can tell you the basic premium that we've been paying for the errors or omissions policy that covers this is a great deal of money. It's under $4,000 for $26 million worth of coverage. So the answer is, Mr. Israel believes in the king and his clothes. Okay, why? Just to bring you up to date, our attorneys a while back, and we posted it, sent a nice letter to Mr. Israel. Not mean or said, we request that you, UCO, who is the party who signed these contracts, pursue M&M to help the village get it corrected. They had 30 days to answer this letter. We got a letter back within a week from UCO's attorney, which everybody says is old and over the hill and whatever, Rod Tennyson, and said, in brief terms, and you could see it, take your letter and you could know what you could do with it. Now, I made mention of that Mr. Israel did that on his own. I don't think he ever published that letter. Did he tell it to the officers? Did he tell it to the executive board? Did they ask his opinion? No. Part of what we're talking about here is what can we do? You know, it's easy to criticize, and it's easy to keep having these meetings. Mine and others' ultimate goal is to correct the budget, which is instant right now, and to get recompense for the errors of the past. Now, obviously, the votes of the delegates and the feeling of many people doesn't seem to impact anybody. I think when people get elected, they get the syndrome of a public official. They're different than everybody else, and they know better. As Mr. Israel became not only a lawyer before, now he's a licensed civil engineer. I would like for us, in the near future, and I prepared several letters, you know that you're entitled to get certain documents from UCO. You know he turned down what he said that myself, Dorothy, and George cannot look at the books because a forensic audit can be used in litigation. Yes, it could. And we're biased. Well, I don't think I've ever been accused of fraud, of changing the numbers. I don't think George has, and we certainly know how open Dorothy was with every single budget. She said it's up to the delegates what you want. That's not the case. So for those who are willing, we'll prepare the letters. I don't want to send one letter in because that's one letter back and he's just going to turn one person down. I need people to sign up that we'll prepare the letter. You can look at it. It's going to be in a standard form. It's going to cite the portions of 617 that entitles you to inspect the books and get copies. Now, if we send in multiple letters and it turns down multiple people, it's just another example of why his administration is not being transparent. So I would, just like at the prior meeting, we had a very good turnout of people who are willing to make phone calls. I'd like to get people willing to have these letters. Now, we have some experts who have been in. You saw some of them here before at the last meeting. But we also have some items on the budget that we looked at that are grossly out of line besides the reserves. One of them is the $10,000 line item, $100,000 line item for a sign. Now, we have a gentleman with us. Amongst his other traits, he had his own sign company for many years. And he was at the bid committee meeting, I believe, where they brought it up. And he got into a rather heated discussion with Dominic, saying, first of all, did you ever go to the town to see what the zoning laws were? No. Do you have any estimates of the sign? No. How could you come to that conclusion? Can I see your drawings? He was permitted at that point not to copy them to see it, and he contends that first of all he can get a trade discount having been in the trade, and second of all, that sign would never pass because it was like a marquee, you know, with the lights changing and come to Century Village, blah, blah, blah. And those are absolutely outlawed, not permitted in Palm Beach County, as it distracts the drivers. So what we have here, and in answering a question about the sign, Howard O'Brien said, I don't know, I just took a guess. Well, there are many other items on that budget that he's guessed on. And one of the other ones, I'm not going to go through every one. The insurance, I love the insurance. A question was asked why the insurance was raised at the delegate assembly. And David Israel spontaneously answered, because of the lawsuits. Now that person was looking at the budget, and if you look at the budget, it says $40,000. But it has $9,000 more. If you look to other items, the report, another $3,000, 2 or 3 other items. So maybe he has $52,000 on it. Here's the long and the short of it. I requested of Tony Salamandri the total amount of the insurance that we have to pay for 2015. That amount, I have the exact amount, was like $34,310. Well, even if they doubled the $4,000, that can't be the cost, because that would only bring it up $4,000. There are many other items that before this budget passes, we should have the hard numbers.
70% is the property, nothing to do with the erosion.
I hear you. Dan is an expert, but the E&O is what got to be affected. Come on, errors and omissions, is that right? Offices, craziness, whatever. Okay.
Insurance went down.
Well, if we stood here and talked for the next hour and went through line item, I wouldn't mind it, but it's not going to accomplish what we want. Now, I can tell you this, it wasn't me, because you could present all the problems, you have to have a solution. And the last item on the agenda is how to get the current budget passed. Well, we could all go to the one meeting, and if it goes the same way the other meetings went, you're not going to get anywhere. And you're not going to see that budget before 10 or 15, maybe 10 or 12 days before you have to vote on it. So, I have to give credit to George Lowenstein. And to Jerry, because he has da-da-da-da. That really, it was the right time. So, in the various forms, George and I prepared independent letters. And I'll read mine, not because it's mine, because I go first. But George and I are very similar, and we can always make a change. But it's important to take action when people are here, because to get them around. So the following I wrote, and I'll try, who is good, has good eyes? Olga, come on out. Jerry has got good eyes and a very appropriate phone.
Yes.
Maybe you go da-da-da-da at the end of this.
Okay. This is addressed to United Civic Organization regarding revision of 2015 UCO budget. Attention, UCO Officers Executive Board. Please be advised that the Century Village Messenger Club, at the Century Village Messenger Club meeting on January 14, 2015, we, the undersigned, support a motion made and seconded, a copy of which is attached here too, where in essence it states that Ed Grossman, CPA, George Lowenstein, CPA, and Dorothy Tetro, former UCO treasurer, volunteered to work with Howard O'Brien, current UCO treasurer, in an effort to revise the defeated budget as to enable the new revised budget to reflect those items which will help to enable UCO to present to the delegates a budget to vote on and pass. This motion was drafted and accepted by those attending the Messenger Club on January 14, 2015, to expedite and execute a fair and balanced budget. Please be advised that we are trying to avoid the next budget from being voted down as it was in the January Delegate Assembly. Sincerely.
So, I didn't make the motion yet.
I will make it for you.
Come to the microphone, I'll give you the motion.
We understand. You want me to?
Tell us all your name, some people don't know you.
This is on behalf of Phil Shapkin. He makes the motion to accept the letter that was just
I thought you were going to
read.
read both letters first.
You want to read the second letter?
Yeah, we want to read both letters and see the difference.
We're still on vacation mode. Okay. And at the January 14th meeting of the Messenger Club, a motion was made to form a committee consisting of Ed Gross, CPA, George Lowenstein, CPA, and Dorothy Petro, past treasurer and past chair of the finance committee. This committee shall present itself as being available to help the current treasurer of UCO prepare a budget that is detailed, easy to understand, and properly presented to the delegates. We await your response to this offer.
Well, hold on. Well, the majority will rule. The only thing I would ask George is, his does not call for your signatures also. So mine says, his could be the motion, this could be where you sign to support the motion, and you can have both of them. Well, that's what I'm saying. We'll use his, but I will pass mine around which says you support his. And that way, not that it's just, no, it's not just that it's George, it's everybody. No, it's one motion and a letter.
I second it.
You second what?
The motion.
Have you want to amend the motion?
This one, make a comment. I think the letter should include the fact that, because what you're asking for is very subjective, and, detail could be whatever there. So one person's detail is another one's garbage. So I would add properly supported by documentation. In other words, if you have a $100,000 thing for a sign, could there be some engineering or some other,
Well,
same with the insurance.
the answer is that that can be gotten with those requests for letters. They're not going to just present it to you. I don't want to make an issue of which letter, but I want, whichever one you pick, to have the support of everybody here willing to support it.
We'll count to sign it.
What?
We'll count to sign it, that's all.
Well,
They'll be the committee, and we here. Thank you about
Sign the letter, go to the post
Hold it,
office.
hold it, hold it.
David already loves me, he'll love me more. He'll love you more.
Hold it.
Get like you go.
All right. We have lots of motions.
All right.
I don't know if Robert's rules are here. Our rules are here.
Mob rules.
The mob rules.
I make a motion that we use the letter that Ed Grossman prepared because I feel it's more appropriate and it's more involved and it would have the signatures. So I don't know, that's my motion.
I would say that we could attach George
To that.
to that, and we got everything. Okay. So
Anybody
I said,
second?
okay, the motion's been seconded.
Everybody vote on it?
Let's have all those not in favor. Oh, you're right. I thought we just had the discussion. Okay, a motion was made, it was seconded, now we have discussion.
Can I ask a question, please? What was the actual motion? We did not hear it over here.
Okay, can you repeat the actual? We only have 5 or 6 days before he has his meeting.
Okay, so let's hear it.
The motion is to accept the letter that Ed prepared with the addition of the comments that George made.
No.
No, with the inclusion.
Inclusion. That's the addition.
No, because that's more demanding. The first letter is demanding. George's letter is a request.
Request, which is
And
better.
that's the way it should be.
Which is
Well,
better.
Can somebody
Hold on,
make the
hold on.
motion? I like
Hold
Not
that.
on.
antagonizing anybody.
Right.
You, listen, you
Someone
can
else make
walk
that
softly
motion.
and
That's
carry a
not
big
me.
stick.
Here, I'll make the motion.
Wait, there's 3 motions on the floor.
It wasn't seconded.
Wait, hold it. There's 3 motions, and they've been seconded. The first motion was made,
Vote on the first motion.
let's vote on the first motion. And the first motion, which was seconded, was simply to sign this letter and attach a copy of the actual motion. This is not the motion. This is not the motion that we're voting on. This is the letter that we would attach to the motion. That was the first motion.
No, your first motion
No,
was
that's-
your letter.
No, wait, let me tell you. The first motion was to sign and send out the letter I wrote, which says to attach, it's in support of the motion being made. That's what it says.
I'm sorry, but I find that your letter that you are asking for us to sign is more demanding.
Right.
And the thing is, it should be a request. And if people want to sign it, let the people sign it.
Let me
Not
say-
demanding that we should have to sign
I'm not
something.
arguing with you, but that's the motion. It can be voted down, and then we'll go to the next motion.
All right, let's vote on this
Excuse
first
me.
motion then.
Did you take Joe? I don't mind it, but...
A lot of people ain't hard of hearing it.
Come on, let's go then. Let's
Well,
vote
hold
on the
it.
first motion.
Okay, can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Could we just take a raise of hands, a show of hands? Who wants George's letter? Who wants your letter? And let it go, and let's forget this stuff.
Well, that's who wants both letters.
Now I'm thinking.
No, wait. Wait, hold it. That's enough. Let's not make this whole thing crazy. No, let me finish. We're getting out of order here. The first motion was seconded. If you don't want it, we'll vote on it, and if it doesn't pass, we'll go to the next motion.
Read the motion.
Okay, let's vote it out.
The first motion was to accept this letter as written and to attach the actual motion that we are going to take afterwards. Not that it goes by itself, but to attach the actual motion. And that's the motion.
Ed, which letter is that?
Hold it. Which letter?
The one that you're saying is in the motion.
That's the letter. My letter was the motion which said we'll attach the actual
To
motion.
your letter.
Correct.
All right, so we're voting on your letter.
Correct. So the answer is, John,
Yeah, I'd like to say something. What's the difference between a request and a demand? You got a demand from this guy. Request, he's gonna throw it right out the window. We're supposed to be a mob, let's be a mob.
to mince your words a little.
John,
There is no demand.
Don't worry about it.
Read it one more time.
Do I have my pockets?
We're going to read the motion and then we're going to speak to you, have you.
It's a question and a comment. First, the question is, who decides who's going to accept this? Howard O'Brien or David Israel?
Wait.
Let me make my comment now.
Yeah.
If you were at the last delegate assembly, as I was, David got up and he said, you are biased, George is biased, and Dorothy is biased. So what makes you think he's going to let you go in, or tell Howard to let you go in and work on this budget?
Okay, it's a very good question. Should we lie down and die, Jerry?
I'm just...
No. Who said? If they turn it down, it's just another instance, and a very visible instance, that he has no regard for the delegates. If you listen to him, he said, "This is my meeting. This is my meeting." So the answer is, if you said pretty please, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
I'll tell you, as soon, again, it's reality here. As soon as he sees the Messenger Club...
Well, let me tell you something, Jerry. I take great exception to that. I think we have him a little shook up because we're the people who made changes.
I agree.
I don't, what am I going to do?
You know who you're dealing with.
Well, of course, and what do you think we're trying to do?
Don't sign it, Messenger Club. Sign it for the mob.
I can scratch
Or
that
if you
out.
don't do it, we're pansies then. What's the name again?
Sandy. Yeah. I have it right here. I have it.
January 2nd.
No, listen. I have it all here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to vote.
Move the
All
question.
right, hold it. George is here.
Mario got it in the oven.
Okay. I've got 2 points to make. Number one, close. Okay. You hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I have 2 points to make. Number one, Brian is the treasurer. He is the chair of the finance committee. It is his responsibility to produce a budget. It is not the president's responsibility. That's Brian. Therefore, the letter should be addressed to him, not to the president or any other committee, etc. All right?
Copy them in.
So that's number one. You can copy them, but the letter should go to Brian personally. All right? Brian, and in the letter, it states that we would like to see this budget passed, and therefore we're willing to help you to produce a budget that we feel that we can live with. Fine. If he rejects that, then the ball is in his court, and I'm sure that he does not want a second time to have his budget defeated.
That's right.
All right? So I kind of hopeful that he will say, and even if the president says something negative, he's going to say, listen, I'm the treasurer, and it's my responsibility to get this thing done, and so I think we ought to take advantage of that. How can it hurt us to do it? Okay?
We could, hold on, we could pencil that in no time. Let me just bring you up to date. When David Israel didn't let me make the motion and the delegates vote on it, he said, you could come in and vote and work with the treasurer. Well, on Monday, I walked in. I didn't ask for David Israel. I asked for Howard O'Brien, the treasurer. Howard saw me and he said, what are you here for? And I said, I'm here to set up a schedule to come in to do the forensic audit. He says, I have nothing to do with that. Nothing. I said, who do I have to talk to? He said, David Israel. The next day, I came back in after meeting with Marcia Siccardi, and I have it on my phone, said, David Israel changed his mind. David Israel changed his mind. You're biased, you can't come in. This is a letter to all the officers, including Howard O'Brien. If you feel more comfortable, we have a few copies here. We'll CC and Howard O'Brien. I think if you sent it up to David in gold plate, it wouldn't pass. If you gave it to him in solid gold, there's a chance. That's the nature of the audit. Now, if it appears in litigation, there are two sides, the plaintiff and the defendant. The defendant here is UCO. They've already presented their side. This is a chance for the delegates to present their side. And that's what it's for. We dues into the attorney. And when UCO runs short, then he'll listen to us.
That's right. In the very beginning, you told people to pay January based on the 215 budget.
No, absolutely not.
Because you
Never.
said it's less than
No,
214.
at the very beginning I said you couldn't amend the budget. If you check the code, it must be refiled every single year. So when he said it was handled wrong in the past, if it was handled wrong in the past, all the past years are incorrect, but they weren't handled like Howard wants it. And we could suffer severe penalties and interest and taxes. Could, not necessary.
Yeah.
How are we doing on the signatures? Where are we on? Well, no, George is up.
George, of course.
Age before beauty. Okay, I'd like to make two corrections. Number one, we had a tax examination of UCO's tax return, and Dorothy and I handled that examination rather than calling in the outside auditors, which would have cost UCO more money, and we got a no change. So what we did was accepted by the IRS as proper. Okay, number one. Number two, UCO has in the past sent out bills to each association, and if the bill was not paid or not paid in full, UCO had the right to deny the telephone call-in system. Not access by you to the gate, not access by your visitors, if you went to the gate and told them the name of the visitor, just the ability to call in from your home, okay, could have been denied. That was one. Yeah.
The barcode, they can disable the barcode, so you have to.
Right.
Yeah,
To the visitor's gate, okay? That's a right that UCO has, so just understand that they do have some rights, despite, you know, what you're being told here by Ed, they can't do it. Yes, they can. We've done it. We've had one association, I know when I was president and Dorothy was treasurer, who was very belligerent and didn't want to pay. And we wrote a letter to all the unit owners and said if we don't have the money by a certain date, we're going to cut out the telephone call-in system. And it worked. We got the money in.
What gives you the right to do that, though?
UCO, because UCO's, your agreement with UCO says that you are a member of UCO, and if you don't pay your obligations to UCO, UCO has a right to enforce.
Where is that written?
Did you take a look at the agreement? I forgot what it is.
The bilateral?
The bilateral agreement.
Bilateral
Yeah.
agreement.
George, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
When you were exercising that right, you had a budget that was passed. Right now, you have no budget that was passed.
Right.
So, I would challenge them at every move. They may have it in writing, but that's when you have a budget, not when you have a mishmash. And they do have to give you time, and I don't think, I could be wrong, that they're just going to do this. It's just another nail in their coffin. And if they do, we're not standing alone.
Ed,
Okay, there's two.
this is a scare tactic. That was one association, George. You know how many associations have opted out and are not paying that $2 bill? Are they going to cut out, they're going to go...
They cannot. This is what I was going to
They're
talk
going to cut
about.
out
Yeah.
half of the village?
They
They
cannot
keep their
because it
scare
was
tactic.
voted out. The $2 was voted out.
Right,
So
right. So why are
therefore they
just claiming
can't.
not paying?
I think what we're
Can't
talking
enforce
about,
it.
I don't want to cut this off, but what I think we're talking about is, in French, it's called an F-ship. Translated, that's a maybe. And I think Esther is right. It's one of their scare tactics. I think they, which includes our own unit holders, on another level in Cloud 9, would be really remiss to take that step on this kind of situation. They try to put the budget in two parts. They try to do this. Do not be afraid of what they may do, because the next year, part of that they is going to be sitting here. So let's stick to our guns.
Okay, there's some misunderstanding here. UCO was formed about 25 years ago. The bilateral agreement, the first one was signed in 2000. Now, the 2000 was for certain things that you have to adhere if you want to. So this has nothing to do with actual UCO. This is a different thing than what UCO was formed. UCO was formed 25 years ago. It started as for transportation and they ended up things. Bilateral agreement has specifics. You have to do 1, 2, 3. They cannot, by voting out, create something that I have to paint my association building red or anything. This is one thing. Second, another thing I'd like to say, you mentioned twice the insurance here. I want to tell you they're misleading the people, and some people buy it, that we are suing ourselves. This is what I keep hearing from people who don't know. And I just want to tell you something. If you have a car and you have an accident, you go to the insurance, you are suing yourself. If you have a fire in your apartment or a flood, you're suing yourself. That's the nature of insurance. And when he tells you that you're gonna pay double and triple, this is peanuts, okay? Because in fact, after all those, each unit will have to pay something like $631 to fix the road on 5 million. And if it's gonna be double, we're gonna be assessed even more.